Strong, tall, and broad-chested, Ogunlola was known across all the 7 villages for his unmatched skill with the bow and spear. No lion, leopard, or buffalo dared cross his path and live to tell the tale. His fame spread so wide that even the spirits of the forest whispered his name in fear. One bright morning, Ogunlola stood proudly in the village square of Iloro, boasting before the elders and young men gathered for the market day. "Who is greater than Ogunlola?" he roared, striking his broad chest. "I have slain leopards with a single spear. I have dragged a wild buffalo home with my bare hands. Even the spirits flee when they hear my footsteps. There is no beast in this forest that can challenge me, not even the elephant." At these words, the old Babalawo, Oba Erin, sitting under the ancient Iroko tree, slowly opened his wise, tired eyes. He puffed his pipe and spoke in a quiet voice. "Ogunlola, be careful what you speak. The forest has ears, and pride calls trouble like the smell of blood draws flies. Not all strength is measured by muscle or spear. The elephant you mock is older and wiser than you think." But Ogunlola only laughed, tossing his head. "Let him come. I will make a stool from his mighty skull and hang his tusk on my doorway." That very night, as Ogunlola ventured deep into Iboden to hunt, he heard a heavy rumble like thunder shaking the ground. The moon shone full and pale, and before him stood Oba Erin, the elephant king, his huge body gleaming like silver under the moonlight. "Ogunlola," rumbled Oba Erin in a deep, slow voice that made the trees shiver. "I have heard your boasting. You claim no beast is your equal. You call me weak and foolish. But the forest watches, and it is time you learn humility." Ogunlola gripped his spear tightly, unafraid. "You are big, old one, but slow. My spear will strike before your trunk can lift a twig." But Oba Erin chuckled, a sound like distant drums. "Strength is not in the arm alone. Come, hunter. I challenge you not to a fight, but to 3 trials. If you win them, I will bow before you and the forest will call you king of beasts. But if you fail, you will serve the forest as my messenger for 7 seasons." The hunter frowned, surprised. "What trials, great elephant?" But Oba Erin only smiled mysteriously. "The first trial begins at dawn, near the river of Omiapra. Be there, or let the forest judge you a coward." And with that, the mighty elephant turned and vanished into the shadows, his footsteps shaking the earth long after he had gone. Ogunlola stood in silence, his pride battling with a creeping doubt in his heart. Was this truly just an old beast, or something more? The whispers of the forest stirred, and the wind carried the distant voice of Oba Erin. Not all strength lies in the spear. As the first light of dawn crept into the sky, Ogunlola strapped his hunting gear and began his journey to the river of Omiapra, his mind filled with questions. He did not know what awaited him at the river. Nor did he know that the trials of Oba Erin would test not his strength, but the very wisdom of his heart. At the break of dawn, Ogunlola arrived at the banks of the great river Omiapra. The air was thick with mist, and the soft rush of water against stones filled his ears. Across the wide stream stood Oba Erin, the elephant king, waiting silently as though carved from the spirit of the forest itself. Ogunlola raised his spear. "What is the first trial, mighty one? Speak, and let me prove my strength." But Oba Erin shook his great head slowly. "Put down your spear, Ogunlola. This trial cannot be won with weapons or strength of arm." The elephant gestured with his trunk toward the river. There, nestled upon a rock in the middle of the rushing water, sat a tiny bird, Ayadoba, the peaceful dove. "This bird," rumbled Oba Erin, "has lost its voice. Without its song, the dawn cannot properly break, and the forest spirits remain asleep. Your first trial is to return the song of Ayadoba before the sun reaches the top of the sky." Ogunlola frowned deeply. "How can I give voice to a bird? My hands wield spears, not songs." "The dove's voice was stolen," said Oba Erin softly. "Stolen by the cunning spirit of the river, Esinomi, who now hides its voice in the deepest whirlpool beneath these waters. Retrieve it, without anger, without force, or fail the first trial." Ogunlola clenched his fist. He could not fight water. He could not pierce a whirlpool with a spear. "How can I face a spirit made of river?" he muttered to himself. Suddenly, From the rushes by the riverbank, an old tortoise emerged, Ejopa, the trickster of the forest. Ogunlola, said Ejopa in a dry, crackling voice, you are strong, but strength is not your ally here. Listen well, and you may win. The hunter narrowed his eyes. Why should I trust the words of a trickster, Ejopa? You deceive even the spirits. Ejopa chuckled, dragging his heavy shell closer. Oh, but sometimes wisdom hides in the shell of a liar. Esinomi loves riddles, more than power or gold. Go to the edge of the whirlpool and ask him this riddle: what drinks without lips, sings without voice, and runs without legs? If you puzzle him, he will lose focus and drop the dove's voice from his grasp. Ogunlola thought for a moment. And what is the answer to this riddle, old one? Ejopa smiled slyly. The answer, brave hunter, is the river itself. Without another word, Ogunlola stepped carefully into the shallow water, wading toward the roaring whirlpool at the river's heart. The water swirled and trembled as a face formed in the churning depths. Esinomi, the river spirit, its watery eyes glittering with mischief. Who dares disturb my quiet? Hissed Esinomi, his voice gurgling like bubbles. Hunter. You cannot fight water. Go home before you drown. But Ogunlola stood firm. I come not to fight but to ask a riddle, spirit of the river. If you solve it, I shall live. If you fail, you will release the dove's voice. Esinomi laughed, amused. A hunter with riddles instead of spears. Speak then. I will solve it before the sun winks at the sky. Ogunlola raised his voice boldly. What drinks without lips, sings without voice, and runs without legs? The river spirit paused, its bubbling foam quivering. The whirlpool spun faster, slower, faster again. Drops of water leapt into the air, as if searching for an answer. Is it the wind? Esinomi guessed. No, said Ogunlola firmly. Is it the clouds? The rain? No, he replied. Esinomi's form wavered and shook, growing dim and faint. At last, with a mighty groan of defeat, the spirit whispered, it is the river itself. With that, a tiny, glowing sphere rose from the depths, a ball of light, and sung the voice of Ayadoba. It floated gently to Ogunlola's hand. Take it and leave, hunter, Esinomi gurgled, fading away. Clever are you, for now. Ogunlola turned and waded back to the shore, placing the glowing voice into the throat of the silent dove. At once, Ayadoba fluttered its wings and burst into sweet song. The sun rose brighter, the forest awakened, and the trees swayed gently in rhythm. Oba Erin stood waiting, his great eyes watching the hunter closely. You have passed the first trial, Ogunlola. You used wit instead of strength. But the second trial awaits, and this one will test your patience and courage, more than your mind. Ogunlola wiped the water from his brow, breathing heavily. What is the second trial, great Oba Erin? But the Elephant King only smiled, and slowly turned toward the shadowed path leading deeper into the heart of Iboden. Without a word, Ogunlola followed, his spear heavy at his side, not from weight, but from the knowledge that force alone would not win these trials. And the forest whispered around him. Not all battles are fought with weapons. Deeper and deeper into Iboden they went. The great Oba Erin led the way, his massive form parting bushes and trees as if they were grass. Ogunlola followed in silence, gripping his spear, his heart uneasy. The forest here was darker, older. Even the birds held their breath, and the leaves whispered secrets he could not understand. At last, they reached a clearing where the earth was scorched and cracked. Nothing grew there. In the center of the black soil stood an ancient, broken tree, its branches twisted like claws, its trunk hollow and yawning like a great mouth. Oba Erin turned and spoke. Ogunlola, your second trial is this: you must face the Ajogonija, the spirit of conflict, who dwells within this cursed tree. He feeds on anger and fear. If you strike him, he will grow stronger. If you hate him, he will become more fearsome. Your task is to enter the hollow of the tree, pass by Ajogonija, and retrieve the golden calabash resting in the heart of the trunk. But you must do this without raising your spear or your voice in anger. If you fail, he will consume you, and you will become part of the tree forever. Ogunlola stiffened. You ask me to face a spirit of battle without battle. How can a hunter do such a thing? But Oba Erin only rumbled gently, the greatest strength, Ogunlola, is to master oneself. With that, the elephant king stepped back, and the broken tree groaned open, revealing a dark passageway filled with choky mist. Ogunlola swallowed hard and stepped into the hollow. At once, a voice filled his ears, a harsh, hissing whisper. Who comes? Another warrior. Another fool. Come, strike me, hunter. Draw your spear. Test your strength. Fight me and feed me. A shape slithered out of the darkness. Ajogonija was no man, no beast. It was a riding mass of shadow, with burning red eyes and a jagged, toothless mouth that grinned hungrily. Ogunlola gripped his spear tighter as the spirit circled him. Hit me, brave hunter. Strike and prove your might. Or do you fear me? Are you weak? A child, the spirit laughed, its smoky fingers reaching toward him. Ogunlola felt his muscles tense. Every part of him wanted to strike, to drive his spear into the heart of this mocking thing. But he remembered Oba Erin's words. He closed his eyes. I will not fight you, spirit, Ogunlola said, steadying his breath. I see your trick. You want my anger, my fear. But I give you nothing. I am not here to fight. I am here only for the golden calabash. Ajogonija hissed, swirling faster around him, whispering words that stung like nettles. Your father was weak. Your mother cried when you left. You will fail as they did. You will die here and be forgotten. But Ogunlola clenched his jaw and stepped forward. Each step brought him closer to the heart of the hollow where a faint golden glow shimmered. Say what you will, Ogunlola muttered. Your words are wind to my ears. I have no anger for you. I have no fear for you. The spirit shrieked in fury, its shape boiling with rage. But Ogunlola ignored it. He reached the golden calabash, small, simple, glowing softly with warmth. He lifted it gently. At once, the hollow trembled. The darkness around him began to break. Ajogonija screamed one last time, twisting and shrinking, until it faded into mist. Ogunlola stepped out of the tree into the sunlight once more. Oba Erin waited. You have done well, said the elephant king. You conquered not the spirit, but yourself. That is greater than any spear strike. Ogunlola bowed his head, sweat on his brow. Is the third trial next, mighty one? He asked, breathing hard. Oba Erin smiled slowly. Yes, hunter. But the third trial is not of strength. Not of wit. Not of patience. It is of the heart. The elephant turned, walking once more toward the deep forest. The third trial awaits in the valley of Orinapodi, the valley of lost souls. There you will face the greatest choice of your life. Follow, if you are ready. Ogunlola's hands tightened on the golden calabash as he followed Oba Erin, the forest closing behind them like the pages of a great book. And the wind whispered softly. Not all trials are won with victory. Through the dense forest they traveled, Oba Erin, mighty and silent, and Ogunlola, holding the golden calabash tightly in his hand. The trees grew older here, their trunks as wide as huts, their roots tangled like sleeping snakes. Strange whispers floated through the air, unseen eyes watched from the shadows. At last, they reached the edge of the valley of Orinapodi, the valley of lost souls. A thick mist covered the valley floor. Shadows moved within the fog, pale and hollow, like faded cloth fluttering in the wind. The air was cold, and the scent of old memories filled Ogunlola's nose, sorrow, longing, and unfinished stories. Oba Erin spoke in a voice as low as distant thunder. Here is your final trial, Ogunlola. In this valley wander the spirits of those who lost their way, warriors who chose wrongly, hunters who gave up hope, kings who betrayed their people. You must cross this valley to reach the stone of judgment. But beware, the spirits will call you by name. They will take the shape of your loved ones. They will beg, trick, and plead for your help. If you answer them, if you leave the path even for a moment, you will remain here forever, another lost soul wandering without rest. Ogunlola felt a chill in his heart. But what if they are truly in need? What if they are my ancestors? Oba Erin shook his head. You must decide. Mercy or purpose. Compassion or strength. This is the trial of the heart. Choose wisely. And without another word, the great elephant stepped aside, leaving Ogunlola alone. The hunter drew a deep breath and stepped into the mist. At once the air filled with soft voices, whispers that caught around his ears like smoke. Ogunlola. He froze. The voice was clear, familiar. Ogunlola, my son. His eyes widened. From the mist emerged the figure of his mother, Ayogun, her face kind and warm as he remembered. She held out her arms, tears shining in her eyes. Do not go further, my son, she said softly. Stay with me. The valley is dangerous. Why risk yourself? You have done enough. Rest here, in peace, forever. Ogunlola trembled. His heart longed to run to her, to feel her embrace again. But he remembered Oba Erin's words. No, he whispered, forcing his feet to move. You are not my mother. My mother sleeps with the ancestors. You are a shadow, a trick of the valley. The figure wavered and vanished. But another form stepped from the mist. It was Ekimwel, his childhood friend, smiling, laughing, holding the broken spear with which he had died long ago in the hunt. Ogunlola. Ekimwel called. Brother. Help me. You left me to die that day, do not leave me now. Save me, and I will return to life. The hunter gritted his teeth. You are not Ekimwel. He is at rest. I will not turn from my path. The spirit snarled and dissolved into smoke. Step by step, Ogunlola walked deeper into the valley. The fog thickened. The cries became louder, sadder, more desperate. Ogunlola. Your father. Help me. Your wife is waiting. Turn back. Your child weeps for you, come home. His heart strained. Doubt crept into his soul. Were they lies? Or truth? How could he be sure? What if just one of them was real? He stumbled. He closed his eyes and gripped the golden calabash, feeling its warmth, remembering Oba Erin's warning. Suddenly, silence. The mist parted before him. At the valley's end stood a great stone slab, smooth, dark, shining like the night sky. The stone of judgment. Ogunlola stepped onto the slab. A deep, rumbling voice filled the air, not Oba Erin's, but something older, something vast. Ogunlola, son of Ayogun, you have reached the end of your trials. But before the path opens, you must choose. A shimmering form appeared on the slab beside him. It was a child, small, thin, weeping softly. Help me, the child said, holding out trembling hands. I am real. I am not like the others. Save me, or I will be lost forever. Ogunlola's heart stopped. He looked to the mist. Oba Erin watched silently at the edge of the valley. If he stepped from the stone to help the child, he might be trapped here forever. But if he ignored the child, and it was truly real, he would leave an innocent to suffer. His hand clenched. His breath slowed. He stood upon the edge of choice, the final trial, not of spear, not of wit, not of patience, but of the heart. And the valley held its breath. Ogunlola stood motionless on the stone of judgment, his eyes fixed upon the child before him. The boy trembled, his eyes wide with fear, his voice small and desperate. Please. I am real, not like the others, save me. His tiny hands reached out. Ogunlola's heart ached. His fingers twitched toward the child, but then his thoughts turned sharply to Oba Erin's warning. The spirits will call to you, they will beg, trick, and plead. If you leave the path, even for mercy, you will be lost. But what if the child was real? What if the valley of Orinapodi played a crueler game, that this was no spirit, but a lost soul truly needing rescue? He closed his eyes. Silence filled the valley. Even the whispers of the dead were hushed, as though the whole forest watched. And then, a faint stirring in the air behind him. a presence. Do not doubt, Ogunlola, came the deep, rolling voice of Oba Erin, speaking into his mind without words. The final trial is not only to choose, but to see with the heart. Look again, not with fear, but with truth. Ogunlola opened his eyes slowly. And then he saw. The child's feet did not touch the ground. Its shadow lay twisted on the stone, no child's shadow, but that of a serpent. A trick. A mask. A spirit in disguise. A quiet anger burned in Ogunlola's chest, not the wild anger of fury, but the cold anger of wisdom denied. He straightened his back and faced the spirit. "You are false," he said softly, his voice steady as iron. "You are not a child. You are the last temptation of this valley. I see you now." The child's eyes widened, and then its face twisted into something dark, grinning with long fangs and eyes like pits of ash. "Clever hunter," it hissed. "Wiser than most. But there will be other valleys, other trials, in your path." With a shriek like tearing cloth, the figure crumbled into dust, vanishing into the mist. At that moment, the mist of Orinopodi began to fade. The valley cleared, the sun breaking through for the first time in centuries. A warm breeze stirred the grasses. And standing at the edge of the clearing was Oba Erin, his massive form glowing faintly with golden light. "You have done what few mortals ever could, Ogunlola," the Elephant King rumbled gently. "You passed the trial of the heart. You saw truth where many see only fear or hope. The valley has released you. The forest itself bows to your spirit." Ogunlola breathed deeply, the weight of the trials lifting from his shoulders. But he did not smile. His heart was heavy with the cost of such wisdom. He stepped down from the stone of judgment and approached Oba Erin. "Great Elephant King," he said softly, "I have passed your 3 trials. But to what end? What is the purpose of this journey?" Oba Erin turned, his eyes shining like twin moons. The ground trembled softly beneath his feet. "There is one final truth yet to know," Oba Erin said. "The forest gave you strength. The river gave you weight. The valley gave you clarity. But there is a 4th lesson that no trial can teach. You must come to the hill of memory, where the spirits of the ancestors gather under the stars. There, the full purpose of your quest will be revealed." Oba Erin began to walk toward the west, where the setting sun turned the sky to gold and fire. Ogunlola followed, his spear light in his hand, the golden calabash safe at his side. The whispers of the forest now sang with gentle voices, and even the wind seemed to hum a song of destiny. But deep in the shadows of the ancient forest, unseen eyes still watched. A dark figure stirred, older than Oba Erin, older than the forest itself. It smiled. For Ogunlola's journey was not yet done. And the greatest trial of all was still to come. Through forest and fading light, Ogunlola followed Oba Erin toward the hill of memory, where the earth rose high and the stars began to glimmer in the evening sky. The whispers of the forest fell silent, as if holding its breath for what was to come. At the hill's peak stood a white stone circle. Strange markings, old as time itself, glowed softly upon the stones. And gathered there were shadows made of light, the spirits of the ancestors, tall, proud, silent. Their eyes burned gently like distant stars. Oba Erin stood in the center of the circle and spoke. "Ogunlola, son of Ayogun, hunter of Iloro, your trials are ended. You have shown strength without cruelty, wisdom without arrogance, courage without fear, and compassion without blindness. You are no longer merely a hunter. You are now a guardian of balance between man and the spirits, between earth and sky." As Oba Erin spoke, the spirits of the ancestors raised their ghostly hands, and from their circle rose a single, shimmering light, the spirit of the forest itself. It hovered before Ogunlola, warm and golden, like the dawn. "Ogunlola," it whispered, "you have passed the test that most men fail. Your pride has turned to wisdom. Your strength has been tempered by patience. Your heart has been weighed and found pure." Then the light gently touched Ogunlola's forehead. Visions filled his mind. He saw the future of the forest, safe and full of life, the animals and rivers at peace. He saw his village prospering under his guidance. And he saw himself, not as a boastful hunter, but as Ogunlola the peacemaker, a man whose word would settle disputes between spirits and men, between the living and the dead. The spirit of the forest spoke again. But remember, brave one, the path of wisdom is never over. Even the elephant bows to time. Even the hunter must one day lay down his spear. Guide others with the lessons you have learned, for all who boast must be humbled, all who fight must find peace, and all who live must seek truth. The light faded slowly. Oba Erin stepped forward, his great head bowed low. Farewell, Ogunlola. You are forever a friend of the forest. May your days be long, and your heart remain strong. And with a final rumble like distant thunder, the Elephant King turned and vanished into the shadows of the night. Ogunlola stood alone upon the hill of memory, the stars shining bright above him. He smiled, not with pride, but with quiet understanding. And from that day on, the villagers of Iloro told the tale of Ogunlola, not as the strongest hunter, but as the wise guardian of the forest, whose strength was measured not by the beasts he slew, but by the wisdom he showed.